much for offering to do this with me.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
So I wasn't sure where you wanted to start because I know we're going to talk about some pretty cool, complex
Yeah,
things today.
we are. And you and I have had some fun conversations. Like we really started talking a few months ago, and we had some similarities in our stories, although you're much younger than I am. But I just found it really fascinating that just some similarities we had. And we've recently been talking about fear. And one of the things that I've noticed as a business and brain health coach, a lot of people are doing things that they weren't fearful of before, but now fear has kicked in and they're struggling with, taking those steps, especially when they're uncertain how it's going to turn out.
Right.
And we had talked about doing this conversation on how fear is showing up, but giving ourselves permission to do it anyway, even though, we don't know what the outcome was going to be. And I'm thinking of, and I'll just give a little bit of my background, just because me and fear have been companions for years, and it's been an unwelcome companion, but I've learned to embrace it. And it goes back as far as kindergarten, that I remember. And I remember this. I'm one of those people who overthinks. Like, I'm a detailist, but I think about every little detail. And so I worry a lot. And I was doing that like at the age of 4, I remember. And I remember having, this is going to sound silly, but a crush on this little boy, Jeff Meekins. I was just madly in love with him. And we would go to chapel every Friday as a group. And I saw that I was placed next to Jeff. And all I could think about is, I hope I don't get sick. I hope I don't get sick. Well, I was so worried that I ended up throwing up, not just on me, but him too.
Oh,
And
gosh.
it was one of those moments, or even, just an out of body experience. I didn't want to look him in the eye ever again. But I noticed a pattern happening. I would overthink and worry to the point that it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And
Right.
we've heard that saying, 99% of your fears won't happen. Well, I can disprove that. And I remember even at the age of 16, pumping gas for the first time, so worried that I would miss a step and get gas everywhere. And I did. And it ended up going in the next aisle on a couple of people. And it's
No.
just one of those nightmare experiences. And so I continued those patterns. And I'm an introvert and I don't like, stepping in the limelight. And I remember thinking, I will never speak in public. Like, that was my greatest fear, which is a lot of people's greatest fears.
It was mine too.
Was
It's so
it?
very
Oh my
true.
goodness. Yeah. So I remember saying, or even making a pact with myself, I'll never speak in public. And like at age 46, I went into that field, which is kind of ironic. But it really goes to show that fear can really call the shots in your life if you let it. And it can become such an ingrained pattern. But even with people who haven't experienced debilitating fear, it can creep up on them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it just goes back to show how powerful our mind and our mindset is. I mean, that's why I wake up, I say today's going to be a great day. And if there's a few hiccups, I try to laugh about it and just say, I don't want it to continue, because you hear of those people that they woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe they stepped on something and they're like, annoyed because of, the pain, maybe a tack that was on the floor or something. And then the rest of their day just happens to go wrong. Like, things just keep happening, instead of backing up and saying, maybe one bad thing happened this morning that wasn't ideal. That has nothing to do with the rest of my day. I have a lot of moments and hours in the rest of my day, and there are a lot of wonderful things that I want to accomplish, and I'm going to do them. Catching yourself before you spiral, which is why the killing the ants, the automatic negative thoughts that can ruin our day, are so important. And when I'm talking to other coaches about it, like, you must do that a lot. I'm like, you have no idea. I have to do it regularly. It's
Yes,
like my journaling.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned ants, because I was just speaking to a pest control company yesterday, and because ants have been the automatic negative thoughts, they love that, and it really just being able to identify, okay, first of all, which automatic negative thought am I thinking? Because we can feel the thought, but sometimes it's hard to articulate, okay, which isn't serving me, which is
Yeah,
derailing me.
absolutely.
That I think that's one of the first starting points, is to, find out, okay, which one of you ants is my culprit. And from there, being able to decide, okay, yes, I feel it, and not judging yourself for it. Because I think that's what sometimes we tend to do. Oh, I shouldn't be afraid. I should do better, or I should take this huge giant leap. But that just compounds the fear. But
And
just
that's an ant.
acknowledging,
That's a
yeah,
guilt feeding ant. And that
you're
was
right.
the hardest ones. I think it was about 4 years ago. I was setting my intention, which I do on my birthday as opposed to New Year's Eve. And I said, I'm not going to use the word should as much as humanly possible. And just that alone has helped so much that it's almost like a trigger word when I hear other people saying it. I'm like, you don't need to think that if you don't want to.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
powerful. I love that you do that on your birthday. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah, and that is such a powerful thing, because when we can instead look at ourselves compassionately, yes, this has been really hard, for a certain amount of time, or you look back over the course of your life, this is really hard, yet I'm still going to try. I'm not going to settle for easy. And I think that's what I did for, oh goodness, 3 decades. I went the easy path. I hid, and I just was in my bubble. I was busy all the time helping other people, but I didn't allow myself to live my own life, go after my own goals. And it seems temporarily easier to settle, but long term, when you have been stagnant or you haven't grown, other things can come up in your life, and eventually you'll need to address them. So I was a stuffer. I stuffed things under the rug. and and one of my mentors, he says, and I've got it posted on my wall, you can either listen to the whisper or wait for the 2x4. And I've had several 2x4 moments. I'm just one of those people. Sometimes I just don't listen.
That
But
is so
yeah. So I'm learning to listen. And instead of looking back and thinking, well, why didn't I have it together for all those years, and going into regret, I recognize it's also shaped me who I am today. And fear has become one of my greatest teachers. Like, I have learned so much about my brain, and thankfully to Dr. Amen's brain health coaching certification, I learned how I ticked. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what was happening, and it wasn't my fault. And that allowed me to have more grace and compassion for myself, and also other people that I was working with and around who were struggling with fear and anxiety too.
I love that. And I love the analogies about like the carpet and the 2x4 and just about homes because I love doing home actual work around the home.
Yes.
And I think when it comes to growing, sometimes there's a destruction. There's literally a flattening of an old piece or building, whatever you want to call it, of yourself, where you have to grow into something else and kind of start from the bottom, especially when you've been kind of hiding or just going through the status quo for so long, which, I was definitely kind of the textbook flounderer before I started the clinic.
Ah, so you were the flounder. I was the wallflower. So those lovely labels. Yeah. I
Yeah.
heard it described to me a number of years ago. You're the CEO of a cool little company called YOU. And,
Love it.
and sometimes if you imagine, let's say you're the CEO of a building, which is your 26 square feet. And if you go for a number of years without maintaining it, there's going to be a lot of repairs and work to be done. And
Mm-hmm.
I looked at my life, I'm like, holy cow, I've got a lot of unlearning to do, a lot of habits to release in my life. And so it does take a while. It can get discouraging. But what happens is, with consistency, and that's a word that I don't think people like, but they know it works.
I know.
Yes. It's not a sexy word, but with, just that repetition over time, you're going to see, start to see improvement. And it comes a day where it becomes easier, much easier. And so for
Right.
me, I don't know if the fear will completely 100% go away, but I've developed a new kind of relationship with it. I'm like, oh, there you are again. Let's see what, I'm going to put you in your place. And so I've, developed coping mechanisms. And with Amen Clinic, they have some things that I hadn't thought of. One of the things, and I wanted to show, and I've been carrying this around for years, a health coach gave me, it's a little stress control card. It's a biofeedback, kind of like a mood ring. And they gave it back to me a number of years ago when I was struggling with anxiety. I still have it, but it's under control. But it just allows me to know when I need to stop and do some deep breathing, and you can see results right away. And I didn't realize it was connected to even brain blood flow. That was really cool.
Yeah, when you stop breathing, it stops, the way that your brain is functioning.
Yes, but to really understand that, I kind of knew it, but to really see it in those terms, I was like, wow, I have more control than I thought I did.
Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely do.
Yeah. So one of the things that I found for me, because a word that and I've shared with you, I felt spoken over my life, was bold. And I fought it for so many years just because of my personality style. And I'm not, a huge bold personality. But when I looked up the definition of bold, it has those typical definitions that people think of. You command a room, you do daring things, you take big steps. But further down, it has things like using your imagination, thinking different. And I'm like, that is so me. I
Totally.
want to learn to think different. And I encourage people that everyone has boldness inside of them, whether they believe it or not. The cool thing is you get to define it for you. So what's bold for you, Fallon, it may not be bold for me. And what's scary for you, it might be a piece of cake for you, scary for me, maybe a piece of cake for you. So I encourage people to take a look at the things that maybe you're needing to do and grow in. They would be a stretch for you. And that's your area of boldness. And it could change from season to season. Like right now, there are things that, we're doing that we could have done easily a few months ago, but they're now really hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could be a crucial conversation with someone, having, that uncomfortable feeling of setting a boundary. For someone, it could be exploring their strengths or their purpose. It could be a bigger step, and letting go of something that's no longer serving you. But taking the time and really looking at where is an area, one thing that I can begin to start to grow in, and then looking at, am I willing to give myself permission to do that, even though it's hard? Because often we have this great plan, but we don't do it. And it's not because we don't know how, it's because there's something holding us back. And I
Right.
found that one of the very first steps of being intentional with anything is permission. Have I given myself permission? And it's really tied to that validation that we're looking for, I believe. What are your thoughts on
Mm-hmm.
that?
Well, it's funny they said the word permission because then I just forget like how defiant I was for so long. Like anything to deal with giving permission, I'm like, I'm going to do what I want. But then also what you're talking about with crucial conversations and boundaries, those are the names of two of my favorite books.
They're
And
great.
I've been reading a lot about boundaries through COVID because there's just so much fear and people wanting to project their fear onto you. And I just need to make sure that I'm protecting myself because I have a very important job to do and I have a lot of people to serve. And I can only do that by taking care of myself first. And so that was kind of one of the little deals that I made with myself when, back in April, I would say I could tell that things were getting really serious. And I was like, okay, what do I need to do? Like, I know that I need to exercise. I know that I need to meditate. Putting that into my routine currently is pretty simple compared to what it was in the past. Started doing that, but something was missing. And I was like, it's my boundary work. Like, I really needed to work on that. And I've been so grateful to knock out some books about that throughout all of this. And it helps. I mean, I feel lighter. I'm definitely having less fear. I'm definitely allowing other people to have fear, but it's theirs. And I don't need to let that be projected or felt onto me because I'm an empath and it's very easy for me to pick up on other people's stuff. And so that was just something that I really, really wanted to strengthen and get better at. So
Another thing we have in common, Fallon.
yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up the idea of taking care of you. And because there are lots of people who are supporters, they're doing wonderful, noble things, but they don't know how to give back to themselves. They're busy pouring into other people. And
Right.
I think it has a lot to do with sometimes we don't stop and recognize the signs of when we're overdoing it. And we need people outside of us, but having a self-management plan is, I found, very crucial for me. So even daily, I'm taking care of me so that I can help others even more and I can be at my best for others. And one of my 2x4 moments, when my mom passed away in '08 and I was caring for my dad, I did not take care of me and it led into a health crisis. And so we can wait for those turning points of, those crises, or we can be deliberate and choose, when that is for us. But even what I found is even just 5 minutes here and there doesn't have to be a big chunk of time, but what it does, it adds these little pockets of fuel that gives us energy to get other stuff done too, which is kind of
Exactly.
cool. Yep.
Yeah, I love that because it's all about energy. I want to have the best energy. I want to feel the best energy. And I need to use that and channel it into the way that I want to, which is doing exactly what we're doing right now.
So think of self-care. If somebody's listening and they're like, oh yeah, I need to do that. Thinking about it doesn't do it. I mean, that's
Right.
obvious, but sometimes we kind of trick ourselves into thinking that. But think of self-care. The payoff is energy. It will give you energy, so you're not, constantly hitting the gas pedal or feeling tapped out. And one of the things that really helped put that in perspective is when I learned about brain reserve. Like, our brain is an energy sucking machine, but
Right.
it's not made to have all this things running around. It's made to store it or do something with it. And when I was finally able to understand the signs of when I was reaching my capacity, or even what was leading to that, that allowed me to buy some time and, stop what I'm doing, do what I need to refuel my brain, whether it's hydrating, eating protein, meditating, or just breathing or dancing. Then I could get back, and it's kind of like a brain reset for me throughout the day.
Love that. Yeah, I have little points in the day where I'm actually using that word too. We're so much alike. It's crazy. Brain reset. Like I need to hit reset and channel what I need to work on next, whether it's preparing for a meeting, preparing for my lunch that I'm going to be making, whatever it happens to be, and just, giving yourself grace, but also being proud. Like when you do something that is valuing yourself, I mean, that's the biggest thing that you could really experience and feel that is authentic and really serving others, because you can't take care of other people if you don't take care of yourself.
Absolutely. And valuing ourselves it's so key. And when I'm working with businesses, especially now, we're taking time for them to reset their business, but it really is about resetting them. And it goes all the way back to first you, because you are in your business, you are in your family, your community. And so many people are disoriented right now, and they need a
Mm-hmm.
time to reorient to not just what they're doing or the situation, but who they are, because we're not the same people as we were before the crisis. We've adapted and changed. And so recognizing and being proud of how far we've come, but also noticing there's characteristics about us and strengths that we can develop even now. So really defining what those are clearly, and focus on who we're becoming, not who we were or even who we are now, but who we're becoming, who we want to become, and then moving into, maybe resetting your vision or revising it, because you're in your vision. And so that can be a more dimensional, look at it, tied to the strategy. But I really love the idea of resetting, reoriented versus just continuing and not relooking at anything.
Absolutely. And I think for me, it just brings you back to the present instead of just going toward meditation, like just general mindfulness throughout my day and paying attention to things and paying attention to my thoughts and feelings and knowing what I need to do to kind of get to the next step. But one of the most beautiful things that I've learned recently, I'm like a podcast addict. And I learned that there are actually a lot of languages and English English is actually one of them that has it. There are a lot of languages that don't have a word for past or future. Like the concept doesn't make sense to them, and so they don't use it. And if you
Wow.
stay present, all will be well. And that was just this big aha moment that through a lot of the things that we've learned as brain health coaches and just all the people that we get to meet and help, you learn that it's just seems so simple. Some of the things that we need to do to improve ourselves. And that was just a 2x4 to me. It was just like, oh my gosh, like that makes so much sense. And how cool is that? You
That
know?
is powerful. That's very powerful. And
Yeah.
it's really hard in our society, I think, to be present. But it's absolutely possible. It takes practice. Like it's taken me a long time. And I'm
Yeah.
one of those with a busy brain, even while I'm sleeping. I'm always solving things. So don't let me watch, NCIS at night because I'll be solving it. But to really be intentional, like for me, lately, just because I haven't been able to get away, we live one street over from some beautiful water. So in the evenings, we'll just go and just sit by the water, my husband and I.
Oh,
No
yay.
agenda. We do bring our phone, but thankfully, and this is a blessing in disguise, we don't get cell phone service, so we can try. But it's just this idea of connecting, but it's because we've allowed ourselves to be present.
Yeah, and sorry to get like super big and philosophical on you, but water symbolizes the unconscious. And so if you have things that you want to do or accomplish or change about your life, you really have to start working on the subconscious and unconscious messages that often are given to you, whether it's through dreams, whether it's through realizations that I said that I was going to do yoga every morning. It's been 2 months and I haven't done yoga one morning. What is it that I'm missing to start making that habit a habit? Because our brain needs conscious energy, but to bring things from the unconscious and the subconscious, we really need to get it there. And that involves hard work of just starting to do it and say you're going to do it and you just do it. And it's, again, it seems simple, but it is usually a hard month. The brain needs about 28 to 35 days to form a new habit. So I always tell people if you're trying to give up sugar, or you're trying to do yoga first thing in the morning, whatever your daily self-care habit is that you're trying to start, if you just tell yourself, you know what, for 30 days, this is going to be a struggle. And then after that, it's going to be easier. I feel like that helps a lot of people not get as overwhelmed and stressed out if they aren't doing it as quickly as they wanted to.
Oh, I hadn't heard it explained it that way. So are you familiar with habit stacking?
No, that sounds
Okay.
awesome though.
So yeah, so habits, they're pretty hard to form when they're new. But the way the brain, does neurons, and when you get to be my age, things slow down. What they found was it's easier to start a new habit on top of one that already exists. So let's say I have a habit of brushing my
Oh,
teeth. It's a great time for me to review my goals, do my affirmations, on the spot. And so what I
yeah.
did, I took an inventory of the habits that I had and the ones I wanted to implement, and then just stacked them on top of it, like did it immediately. They stick so much more
I
easily.
love that. That's
So yeah,
genius.
so James Cleary wrote a book called Atomic Habits. He talks about it in there, but it's
Cool.
yeah. I thought you would like that one.
Totally. Yeah. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole with him later.
Great. Yeah. So I did not know that about the water, but I will tell you, water is just one of those things that I find very healing. And what I've done over the last few months, I've been releasing a lot. I've been releasing a lot of my business, things that I have loved for years, but that no longer serve me because I'm going in other directions. And it's been hard. And I've been releasing, relationships. And so what I've done is I'm taking 4 rocks and I go down to the water and I kind of do this little ritual thing. It's tied to, I don't know if you've heard of medicine wheel. It goes back to the native way of doing things to release things. But I think about the thoughts that aren't serving me. And I just imagine myself projecting it into the rocks and I throw it in the water. Then I think about the toxic relationships. And then I imagine, what is it that I want? What specifically? And then I just kind of daydream. And what I found out later is that helps the brain detach and surrender and let go, because it is always trying to figure out and solve problems. But it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like detaching from that and just releasing it. It has been so freeing. I've loved it.
That is incredible. I love that.
Yeah. Well, you just have
Yeah.
incredible tools too. And I enjoy talking to you about these.
Me too. It's always so fun.
Yes, absolutely. So when it comes to, let me ask you this, because I know we have similar stories, but we also have different personalities. Like for you in what you're doing, what, or even in your life, what are some of the ways that you're, taking bold step or giving yourself permission?
So just with my routine, it's so different now because I'm not going into an office, I'm not sitting in traffic. I'm at home. I love my home. I've worked very hard to make it as peaceful and tranquil as possible. And so, I wake up, I enjoy cuddle time with my animals. So what I was doing on the weekends, I'm able to do every day now. So just spending quality time with them, drinking some water. I'll watch one episode of a funny show, which helps with dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Dr. Amen was talking about that on Mind Valley earlier this week, how important comedies are. And then I just start digging into my day. So emails, phone calls, appointments with clients. And then I'm able to cook myself a good lunch, and I do that mindfully, and I turn my phone on silent just for that like 10 minutes while I'm cooking. And then I eat, and I'm eating mindfully. I'm not eating while checking emails and on the phone, which is great. And then after the workday is over, I take my dog on a walk, which as of now, I have to do that a lot later than normal because it's so hot and it's
Oh,
not
yes.
their paw pads. So we'll just hang out in the backyard, throw the ball around, things like that. And then I'll just kind of sit and, like you said, daydreaming, which is very healing to the unconscious. I'm actually reading a book by Robert Johnson, who was a student of Carl Jung, and he was saying that daydreaming is extremely important, which was so funny because I remembered that I wanted to talk to you about that because, again, that ADD diagnosis and what people don't really understand about when you really do have ADD, especially as a girl, that daydreaming is so powerful when it's used in the right context, which thankfully, I mean, I'm carving time out of my day to just kind of daydream and allow certain thoughts and feelings to come in so that when I'm winding down to go to bed, I'm hoping that I'll gain even further clarity with my dreams because my dream life is pretty intense. And then I kind of just am like, I mean, I remember thinking last night when I was about to fall asleep, I was like, let's see what happens tonight. Like, where am I going to go tonight? Hang out with tonight in my dreams. And then they're just so releasing, like you were talking about, just, all the hard conscious work I'm doing during the day, just hoping that it's kind of presented later.
That's it. Yeah, and it's interesting because I have diagnosed ADD, and the interesting thing, I used to get in trouble for daydreaming in school. Like I was the
Yeah.
one where I'd be looking at the clouds, I wouldn't hear anything going on, and lo and behold, it's a wonderful tool. So our teachers
Right.
got it wrong, but yeah, we had to learn.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's understanding what works for us. Just because, as you know, with ADD, your brains are structured very differently. To do something traditional, it's harder. And when you're running a business, and I found it's especially hard to stay focused on task complete projects. I could be working all day, but if you look at my productivity, it's like, whoa, what happened here? So to really understand your brain, but also know what to give it to make it easier. Just because brains do like, even though it's the most complex organ, it likes easy tasks. It works really well that way.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love that. We're talking about that a couple weeks ago in our staff meeting. The complex brain or the most complex organ in the world doesn't have to be complicated.
Yes, I love that too. It really
Yeah.
is. Yeah, in a group I was talking to yesterday, we were talking about that, and one of the things they realized is, they needed to tame their to-do list. Their to-do list was so complicated and so long, and the idea of a big goal is really appealing, but big tasks are very daunting. And so, we're like, well, what happened? I was excited when I wrote that, and I want to get it done. But when we simplify, not that you have to let your priorities go, but when you let other things go or put them on hold, you're able to, chunk things down, simplify, tame it down. And then, like you said, you get that dopamine hit. I cross it off the list. That's the best part.
Exactly. That's why I love when people write down absolutely everything that they need to do. I've never been like that. Like I'm with because of the over focused ADD, I actually used to have a much harder time leaving a task unfinished. So that's been kind of like something I've been working on and doing a lot better is not feeling like I have to finish everything every second. But yeah, crossing things off your list. So if you write more on your list of things you know you're going to do and you get to cross them off, it's just going to help you even more because that, you know, like you said, that dopamine, I did it attitude is really going to help kind of feel to continue wanting to do that. Again, kind of back to, you know, establishing those habits.
Absolutely. And again, I think knowing, because I was the opposite. I'm the one who started a task and 30 minutes later, I'm like, whoa, where was I the last 30 minutes? I didn't even know I got off task. I was daydreaming. I was solving the world's problems probably. But just
Well,
really
we could use
knowing.
that.
Oh, well, this has been great to talk to you. Thanks so much for having me on.
You are so welcome. Thank you. Is there anything else that, well, I wanted people to know more about you just because you are so humble. I mean, you are a rock star. I mean, you're an amazing coach and people come from all over to talk to you and get your insight on things. So is there anything you wanted to share with everyone about how to find you and things like that?
Yeah, so you can hop on my website, discovernextstep.com, and step is singular, not plural, very intentional. So discovernextstep.com. You can reach out to me, but I'm just passionate about helping, especially the supporters out there. And these could be families, educators, medical professionals, businesses that are supporting other people they're pouring into and helping them really align their work and life.
Absolutely. And I love that we have that new course that's geared toward that as opposed to just people in the medical field. You're one of our brain health coaches, which is amazing. But we also have a brain health licensed trainer course, which is really for anyone that wants to learn more about their brain health and then being able to further educate other people. I know that you're going to be going through that course too, just to see what it's like.
I am so excited. It's fabulous. And I think why I love it so much is anything in like leadership, it starts with us. Transformation begins with me, and we need to be willing to lead ourselves. And for me, I needed to be willing to learn about my brain, but also help my brain be healthier. And because of that, I can turn around and help someone with the difficulty they're having versus me being burnout and not being able to do it because it's taken me a lifetime to find my purpose, and I'm going to do everything I can to protect it. And the brain is involved in everything we do.
Well, I'm so grateful that we have you and our family of brain health warriors.
I'm excited too. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I hope you have a great rest of the day, Barbara.
You too. Be well, Fallon.